First, I saw my mother covered in blood. Then I saw my father crawling beside the table. Then I saw the man standing over them. He wore a pale mask, a white cloak, and my parents' blood on both hands. He stayed. That made my stomach turn. He waited in my house as if the murder was not finished until I saw it. I had left that morning to buy salt and onions. That was my big heroic mission. A few coins in my pocket, mud on my boots, and a mother who would probably yell if I came back with the wrong onions. Then I came home and found her beside the stove. Her apron was twisted under one hand. Blood had spread across the floorboards and reached the sack I dropped at my feet. I said, "Mother?" My voice sounded small. Pathetic, honestly. She did not answer. My father made a wet choking sound near the table. I turned and saw him trying to drag himself toward me. This was the man who once carried a broken plow across a field because he was too stubborn to ask for help. Now his hand slipped in his own blood every time he moved. The masked man watched him crawl. Then he laughed, softly. He found something funny in that kitchen, and I was too stupid to understand the joke. I grabbed the sickle by the door and ran at him. My plan was rage, screaming, and a farming tool. Against the man who had just butchered my family. Great strategy. The sickle never touched him. He caught the blade between two fingers and snapped it. That tiny crack shut my whole body down. All my anger, all my grief, all the strength I thought I had from 17 years of mud, fields, and hauling grain. He broke it with 2 fingers. My mother was dead. My father was dying. Their killer stood close enough for me to touch, and I could not even make him step back. I slammed my fist into his chest. He stayed still. I hit him again. He tilted his head, bored by the effort. Then he backhanded me. I hit the floor hard enough to taste blood. My cheek burned. My ears rang. The broken handle of the sickle rolled away from my fingers and stopped against my mother's shoe. I tried to get up. My arms shook. The man laughed. The laugh was soft, almost pleased. "A quiet laugh feels worse when you are already on the floor," he said. "Your father buried a sin beneath this house. Your mother fed it. And you are what grew from it." I spat blood onto the floor. "I don't give a damn what you think they did." My voice cracked. "Excellent. Nothing says vengeance like sounding 12. The man turned toward my father. "He really does have your temper." My father's hand twitched. His eyes found mine. He lifted 2 fingers, barely enough strength to call me closer. I crawled to him. That is the part I hate remembering most, the crawling. My knees dragged through broken salt and blood while the man who did it watched me. I wanted to stand. I wanted to be someone who could stand. I crawled anyway. My father caught my wrist. His grip was weak, but his nails dug in hard enough to hurt. He whispered, "Kael, don't climb." I stared at him. "What?" His mouth moved again. No sound came out. I leaned closer. "Father, stay with me, please." He looked past me at the pale mask, his face twisted with a fear I had never seen on him before. Then his hand went slack. Something in me went with it. I do not remember standing. I remember the chair falling. I remember my throat hurting. I remember grabbing the broken sickle handle and thinking I could still drive wood through a man's eye if I tried hard enough. The masked man lifted one hand. The back wall of my kitchen split open. The wall folded into darkness, and inside that darkness was a staircase made of black and white light, climbing upward into nowhere. The Vowspire. Everyone in the outer ring knew stories about the tower. Farmers told them in winter when the wind was cruel and work was finished. Climb high enough, they said, and you could gain wealth, power, a throne, a wish. Most of us treated those stories as winter talk. Pretty enough by the fire, useless when your roof leaked. The tower was not useless now. It was standing in my kitchen over my dead parents. The man stepped toward the staircase. I lunged again. He did not even look back. The air thickened and threw me down. My ribs hit the floor. I gasped, furious and helpless, which had become my main skill in life. At the edge of the gate, the man glanced over his shoulder. He said, "If you want revenge, climb. But climb quickly, little ashling. Hate rots when it has nowhere to go." "I'll kill you," I said. He laughed again. Then he stepped onto the stair and vanished upward. I stayed on the floor for 1 breath, maybe 2. Long enough to hear the chickens outside start making noise again, because animals have better survival instincts than farm boys with dead parents. My father had told me not to climb. My mother had no voice left to tell me anything, so of course I did the one thing I was told not to do. I ran after the bastard. The moment my foot touched the first stair, the kitchen disappeared. Blood, salt, stove, bodies, broken sickle. All of it snapped away. I fell onto cold stone in a place I had never seen. Behind me, the gates sealed. A voice rolled through the dark above me. "Unregistered soul detected. Beginning first trial." I laughed once, because the alternative was screaming until my throat split. Wonderful! Even the tower knew I did not belong. The first thing I learned inside the Vowspire was that grief has terrible combat value. It slows your hands, muddies your thoughts, and makes armed strangers see fresh meat instead of tragedy. That is a terrible quality to have in a room full of people trying to breathe. I woke on my side in a circular chamber big enough for a village festival, assuming the village hated everyone and wanted most of them dead. The walls were black stone, the ceiling was too high to see clearly. Hundreds of people stood around me, and every one of them looked more prepared than I was. Some wore armor. Some carried swords, some had glowing marks on their hands. One girl had a little silver snake wrapped around her neck that kept whispering in her ear. A boy near the center had 2 axes, polished boots, and the expression of someone whose parents had paid a lot of money for him to look dangerous. I had muddy clothes, a broken sickle handle, and blood drying on my lip. A great start. Truly inspiring. Bards would fight for the right to ignore it. A bell rang above us. A calm voice said, "First trial. Reach the eastern door before breathable ether reaches 0. Candidates remaining inside at depletion will fail." A red light appeared over a distant door. For half a heartbeat, nobody moved. Then the air thinned. People felt it at the same time. Shoulders tightened. Hands went to throats. Someone cursed. Someone prayed. Someone started laughing like a cracked pot. Then the chamber exploded into motion. I ran. I knew nothing about ether or candidates. I knew air mattered. Farming teaches advanced lessons like that. Air good, no air bad. Very complex. The crowd surged toward the eastern door. Stronger candidates shoved weaker ones aside. A man in bronze armor swung the flat of his blade into a girl's face and stepped over her before she hit the floor. 2 brothers tried to move together. A spear took one through the thigh, the other kept running. I hated him for that. Then someone slammed into me and I understood him a little better. A knee hit my stomach. I folded. A boot caught my mouth. My head snapped back. I grabbed at the leg and got kicked again for the effort. I had imagined my first battle in the tower during the 10 seconds I had been inside it. In most versions, I was brave. In the real one, I got kicked in the mouth and crawled under a dead man because apparently revenge has a learning curve. I dragged myself behind a fallen candidate while the crowd crushed toward the door. A skinny boy dropped beside me, wheezing hard. He had a floating lantern bobbing over his shoulder, its glass sides flashing with little symbols. He looked at me and said, "You don't have a contract." I wiped blood from my chin. "I don't have a clue either. Pick the more useful complaint." He blinked. "You're from the outer ring? I was from a house with a roof 5 minutes ago. Keep up." He swallowed and glanced toward the door. "I'm Mirek. Listen, don't breathe too fast. The chamber drains breathable ether, but panic burns it faster. Candidates with floor contracts can move easier. Without one, you're heavy." "Great. The air is classist." "What? Nothing. How do we get out?" Mirek pointed with a shaking finger. "There are side gaps. The strongest are taking the center. We crawl along the bodies, wait for the crush near the door, then slip through when they start killing each other for space." It was a disgusting plan. It was also the first useful thing anyone had said to me since my father told me not to climb, and I had ignored that, so my judgment was already trash. We crawled. The air kept thinning. Every breath scraped. The floor grew slick under my palms. Blood, sweat. Someone spilled stomach, which I did my best not to think about because vomiting would have been rude to my limited oxygen. A candidate with a red scarf grabbed Mirek's ankle. Mirek screamed. I slammed the broken sickle handle into the man's wrist. He let go, then swung at me with a knife. I dodged badly. The blade cut my forearm. Pain flashed hot. I hit him again, harder, and he snarled. Then another candidate shoved him from behind and trampled him. Mirek stared at me. I said, "I meant to do that. Obviously. Master strategy." He did not laugh. "Fair. Tough crowd." We reached the last stretch near the door. It was worse there. The strongest candidates had formed a wall, holding others back while their own group slipped through. A girl with braided hair blasted 3 people away with a blue flash from her palm. A man with plaited shoulders snapped another boy's neck with one hand. I saw the door, 10 steps away. 10 steps might as well have been 10 floors. Mirek whispered. "We wait." I looked at the door. I thought of the pale mask walking upward. I thought of my mother on the floor. Waiting felt like cowardice. So I did something bold and stupid. I ran. The red scarf candidate I thought had been trampled was still alive. He came out of the bodies like bad luck and drove his knife into my side. I stopped breathing for a reason unrelated to the test. He leaned close and hissed, "Move, trash!" My legs buckled. The world narrowed. The door blurred. The air thinned until every sound came from far away. I heard Mirek shout my name, which was impressive because I did not remember giving it to him. Then I heard other voices, dead voices. They came from the floor, from the bodies around me, broken whispers, raw and angry. "Take what we lost. Take it. Take it." Cold spread through my blood. Gray ash curled around my fingers. The knife in my side felt suddenly distant, like it had stabbed someone standing next to me instead of me. I grabbed the red scarf candidate's wrist, his eyes widened. Something inside his glowing mark cracked. I had no name for it and no control. I only felt every broken breath in that room press against my palm. I shoved him. He flew backward like I had thrown him with a giant's arm. He hit 2 other candidates and all 3 went down. The crowd near the door froze. For one beautiful second, nobody kicked me. Mirek grabbed my collar and dragged me through the eastern door. We landed in a narrow exit corridor as the chamber behind us sealed. The screams cut off. The sudden silence felt worse. I pressed one hand to my side. Blood seeped between my fingers. Mirek stared at the gray ash fading from my skin. What was that? I looked at him. I was hoping you knew. His lantern flickered hard enough to make him flinch. Above us, the same calm tower voice returned. First trial complete. Survivors confirmed. 1 survivor carries unlicensed ether. Report to Examiner Orlan for disposal. Every survivor in the corridor turned toward me. Of course they did. The tower had hundreds of murderers, liars, trained killers, and rich little psychopaths to choose from. Somehow, I won the garbage prize. I laughed through my teeth. Disposal, I said. Nice. I made it 1 room before becoming garbage. Mirek did not smile. That was how I knew things were about to get worse. Examiner Orlan looked clean. That annoyed me immediately. Monsters should have the decency to look the part. Horns, fangs, blood on their sleeves, something useful. Orlan looked like a thin man in a white examiner's coat with silver buttons and perfectly clean hands. He had calm gray eyes, neat dark hair, and the polite expression of a doctor deciding which limb to cut off first. 2 guards dragged me into his examination room and dropped me into a metal chair. I tried to sit straight. My side burned, my lip was split, one eye had started swelling. I probably looked like a scarecrow that lost an argument with a cartwheel. Orlan folded his hands behind his back. He said, Kael Varrin, Outer Ring origin, no registered sponsor, no warden contract, no formal selection, no gate record before entry. I stared at him. You got all that from staring? The chair is reading you. I looked down. The metal arms of the chair were covered in thin, glowing lines wrapped around my wrists. They pulsed with every heartbeat. Great, I muttered. Even furniture gets to violate me in this place. Orlan's mouth moved almost enough to be a smile. The tower never chose you, it never permitted you, and yet it opened. That makes you either a miracle or an infection. I wanted to say something brave. Unfortunately, my mouth was full of blood, which was probably for the best. Brave men sound better when they still have teeth. Orlan lifted a crystal from a black tray. It was the size of an apple, clear at first, then cloudy when he held it near my chest. This measures contract alignment, he said. Does it measure how badly I want to leave this chair? No. Shame. Strong reading there. He pressed the crystal against my sternum. Cold shot through me. The room stretched thin. I heard faint whispers again, not words this time, only pressure, like people speaking behind a wall. The crystal turned gray. Then black lines cracked across it. Orlan's eyes sharpened. The crystal split in his hand. 1 guard stepped back, the other reached for his weapon. Orlan raised 2 fingers and the guard stopped. Interesting, Orlan said. That single word felt worse than a threat. He circled my chair slowly. Most illegal entrants die before inspection. Those who survive usually show stolen ether, false seals, or smuggled contracts. You show absence, then contradiction. I have no idea what that means. I believe you. That is the most convincing thing about you. I hated him immediately, not the burning kind of hatred I had for the pale mask. This was colder. Office hatred, paperwork hatred, the kind you feel for a man who can ruin your life while sounding like he is doing you a favor. Orlan leaned close. You will not be disposed of today. Relief would have been reasonable. My body chose dread, he continued. You will be classified under provisional ash rank and placed with the lowest eligible group. If your abnormality is meaningless, the trials will remove you. If it repeats, I will know. And if I refuse? The pressure in the room doubled. My injured side screamed. My bones pressed into the chair. Orlan had not moved, but the air itself sat on me like a stone slab. He said, You are welcome to refuse after your body remembers its position. I shut up. A wise, tactical choice, cowardice with better branding. They released me into the Hall of First Names an hour later. I expected another chamber. Maybe a prison. Maybe a hallway full of knives, since the tower loved direct communication. Instead, I stepped into a city. The hall stretched under a false sky of blue glass. Stone streets curved around dormitories, weapon stalls, food courts, training pits, message boards, healing tents, betting booths, and little noble lounges where well-dressed candidates pretended the blood on their boots was fashionable. Hundreds of aspirants moved through it like this was normal. Some were laughing. That offended me more than it should have. My parents were cooling on a kitchen floor somewhere below, and these people were arguing over meal tokens and sword polish. Mirek found me near the main plaza. His lantern floated close to his shoulder, dimmer now. "You survived, Orlan," he said. "Apparently he has standards for garbage disposal. What did he rank you?" Before I could ask what that meant, the plaza board lit up. It was a massive slab of dark glass hanging above the square. Names appeared in bright rows. Gold, silver, iron, ember, reed, then lower groups. I did not have time to read because my name blinked at the very bottom. Kael Varrin, rank, Ash, status, unregistered. The plaza went quiet for half a breath, then people laughed. One boy pointed openly. A girl with silver earrings covered her mouth and smiled. The axe boy from the first trial snorted and said, "Ash, that's not even a rank, that's sweepings." Another candidate said, "Maybe the board ran out of insults." I stood under my own name and felt every laugh hit somewhere sore. A ranking board should have meant nothing after what happened in my kitchen. It still did, because the board was right. I was weak, illegal, and surrounded by people built for violence. The man I wanted to kill was somewhere above me, probably still laughing. A girl's voice cut through the noise. "Ash is not a rank." The crowd parted just enough for me to see her. Leora Vey wore a dark coat trimmed in silver, with gloves so clean they made me feel personally attacked. Her hair was black, tied neatly behind her head. She looked at the board, then at me, like I was not a person but a strange knife found in a loaf of bread. Myrek whispered, "That's Leora Vey, fallen noble family, do not annoy her." I said, "I annoy people by breathing, manage expectations." Leora walked closer. "What did you do to earn that?" she asked. "Got stabbed, crawled, bled on expensive floors, very advanced technique." Her eyes moved to the bandage at my side. "And cracked Orlan's crystal." I looked at Mirek. He raised both hands. "I didn't tell her." Leora smiled. "You are terrible at secrecy, it leaks off you." "I just got here." "Yes," she said, "that is the interesting part. I wanted to tell her to go to hell, then I remembered hell might be a floor in this place, probably with better furniture, and held my tongue." That night, Mirek showed me the dorm assigned to low-ranked aspirants. It smelled like sweat, cheap soap, and panic. My cot was near the wall, under a cracked window that showed no outside. Just more stone. I waited until Mirek slept. Then I sat on the cot with nothing left to fight. My hands shook. I pressed them between my knees and stared at the floor until the room blurred. I tried to remember my mother's last words to me that morning. She had said something about onions, or salt. I could not hold the exact sound of her voice, and that scared me more than I wanted to admit. I turned toward the wall to hide my face from sleeping strangers. That was when I saw the carving. It was scratched into the wood above my cot, deep and fresh enough that pale splinters still clung to the edges. "Your mother climbed higher than you think." For a while, I forgot how to breathe. Then I touched the words with 2 fingers. My mother had never climbed anything higher than our roof to patch leaks. That was what I had believed. The tower was starting to make a habit of laughing at what I believed. I woke in a forest. The tower threw me in without warning. Very rude. A little stretching notice would have been polite before the next murder attempt. One moment I was in the dorm with the carving above my head. The next, I was face down in wet leaves, choking on dirt while cold light leaked through glass trees. The forest looked beautiful until you remembered beautiful things can still cut. Every trunk was clear as ice with pale sap moving inside. Branches clicked softly above me. Fog curled between roots. Somewhere nearby, something large breathed once and went still. A red mark burned across the back of my hand. A voice said, "Trial of teeth. Bring 1 predator tooth to the return gate before sunrise. Candidates without a tooth fail. Candidates who leave the trial boundary fail. Candidates killed during trial fail permanently." I sat up slowly. "Fail permanently," I said. "That's a cute way to say die. The tower should write greeting cards." I had no weapon, map, Mirek, or shoes worth bragging about. I still had the broken sickle handle because apparently the tower respected sentimental trash. I heard voices to my left and dropped behind a glass root. 3 candidates moved through the fog. 1 had a crossbow, 1 carried a spear, the 3rd wore leather armor and kept glancing up into the trees. "Find something wounded," the spear carrier said. "Take a tooth and get out." "Or take one from somebody else," the crossbow girl said. "Practical, horrible, very tower." I waited until they passed. Charging at people had gone badly so far. Shocking development. So I used the one skill the tower had not beaten out of me. I watched the ground. Farm work teaches you to read dirt. Animals lie less than people, and mud remembers enough. I found claw marks near a stream, too wide for a fox, too deep for a dog. The trail had broken leaves on one side and clear sap smeared along the other. Whatever made it had brushed against the glass trees while limping, a wounded predator. For once, the tower had handed me a problem shaped like something I understood. I followed the tracks, keeping low, stepping where moss softened my boots. Twice I heard candidates fighting. Once I saw a boy run past me with half his ear gone, clutching a bloody tooth and crying. I let him run. Heroic mercy? No. I was tired and he looked bitey. Near a mud ravine, I found the source of the heady breathing. The sound came from a man, not the predator. He was huge, crouched behind a fallen glass trunk with 3 arrows in his shoulder. Gray-black markings ran along his jaw and neck. Bone plates had risen under his skin like armor trying to grow out of him. His eyes tracked me immediately. "Stay back," he said. His voice was deep and rough, but weak. I lifted both hands. "Gladly, staying back is one of my best skills." He frowned. "You are mocking me." "Mostly myself. You just happened to be nearby." A shout came from above the ravine. "The beast blood went this way." The large man's jaw tightened. I understood then. He was not hiding from a predator. He was being used as one. 4 candidates appeared on the ridge. The crossbow girl from earlier was with them. She aimed down at him. "There," the crossbow girl said. "Let the wolf come for him. We take the tooth after." The huge man tried to stand and almost fell. Leaving would have been the smart choice. I had one goal: find the pale mask and kill him. Every second spent helping a stranger was a second wasted. My father had told me not to climb. My mother was dead. I owed the world nothing kind. Then the crossbow girl shot another bolt into his leg. He did not scream. He only gripped the glass trunk harder. That pissed me off. I picked up a stone and threw it at the nearest glass branch. It shattered with a sharp crack. The candidates on the ridge turned. I shouted, "Hey, your bait is terrible. Too big. Wolves like smaller idiots." Then I ran. 3 of them chased me because apparently insults work better than strategy when everyone is young and stupid. I led them down through the mud, stepping where I had already tested the ground. The first candidate hit the soft patch and sank to his knee. The second crashed into him. The third swung at me with a short sword. I ducked badly, felt the blade slice my shoulder, and slammed the broken sickle handle into his groin. He made a sound I respected. I kicked mud into his face and ran back toward the ravine. The huge man had broken 2 arrows off and dragged himself upright. "Can you move?" I asked. "Enough." "Good. There's a wounded predator trail west. We need its tooth. Also, those bastards are angry. Mostly my fault." He looked at me like I was insane. "Fair review. His name was Torin Blackjaw. He told me while we followed the claw trail." "Beast blood," other candidates called him. "Monster," when they thought he could not hear. He said it like he had heard it so often the word had lost shape. We found the glass wolf in a hollow under clear roots. It was lean, low, and half invisible when it stood still. Its ribs showed through transparent fur. One eye was gone. Its mouth held rows of long white teeth. Torin whispered, "Do not face it head on." That was never on my list. I used my belt, a bent branch, and a strip from my shirt to make a snare near the hollow entrance. It was crude, ugly, and would have made my father insult my knots for an hour. The wolf lunged anyway. It hit the snare with one leg. Torin slammed into its side. Bone plates rose over his arms as he held it down. I drove a sharpened glass branch into its throat and kept pushing while it thrashed. It died slowly enough that I had time to hate it for suffering. When it stopped moving, I pulled one tooth with shaking hands. Then, Torin collapsed. Poison darkened the veins around his arrow wounds. The candidates had coated their bolts. The return gate lit in the distance as dawn began to gray the forest. I could have left him. I had the tooth. He was heavy. I was wounded. The gate was far. Leaving him would have been smart in the clean, practical way cowards explain later when they need to sleep. I cursed, hooked my arms under his shoulders, and dragged. Torin opened one eye. "Why?" "Because I'm stupid," I said. "Try not to ruin my sacrifice by dying loudly." He let out something that might have been a laugh. I dragged him through mud, over roots, under branches that cut my face and hands. Other candidates stared as we passed. Nobody helped, nobody attacked either. Torin, even poisoned, was still large enough to discourage brave ideas. We reached the gate with the sun touching the glass canopy. I threw the wolf tooth onto the stone marker and collapsed beside Torin. The trial voice said, "Tooth accepted. Candidate Kael Varrin passes. Candidate Torin Blackjaw passes by shared return condition." For one stupid second I felt relief. Then Orlan's voice replaced the trial voice. "Additional hidden condition detected. Candidate Kael Varrin interfered with another candidate's natural trial failure. Candidate Torin Blackjaw received unauthorized survival assistance. Both candidates will proceed to punishment evaluation." I stared at the gate. "I saved one person," I said. "Naturally, the tower treated it like a crime. Honestly, I should have expected that." Torin's poisoned hand closed around my wrist. Weakly, he said. I owe you. I looked at the guards appearing through the return light. Try owing me somewhere less horrible. Then the floor opened beneath us. The punishment pit smelled like blood, old sweat, wet stone, and men who had run out of better options. Kael Varrin, farm boy, grief idiot, freshly punished for helping someone survive. Added to the ranking board. Maybe Ash rank came with benefits, like being dropped into every filthy hole the tower owned. Torin and I landed in sand. He hit hard and barely moved. The poison had spread up his neck. His bone plates flickered under his skin but failed to rise. I crawled to him and slacked his cheek lightly. Torin, stay awake! His eyes opened halfway. Working on it. Above us, balconies circled the pit. Failed candidates leaned over railings. Some were scarred, some were missing fingers, eyes, hope. Others looked too comfortable, which scared me more. A man with a shaved head laughed when he saw me trying to lift Torin. Fresh meat brought a pet, he shouted. The crowd jeered. A board lit on the wall. Punishment trial. 3 victories earn release. Refusal earns permanent pit status. Simple rules. My favorite. Simple rules usually meant simple ways to bleed. A gate opened on the opposite side. My first opponent walked in with a club over one shoulder. He was at least twice my size, because apparently the tower had a sense of humor and it was an asshole. Torin tried to sit up. I pushed him down. Save your strength. You cannot fight him. I know. I'm trying something new called lying to myself. The clubman grinned. You sure you don't want the beast to fight for you? I picked up a loose shard of stone from the sand. He charges extra. The bell rang. The man crossed the pit in 4 strides and hit me in the ribs with the club. I flew sideways and ate sand. I discovered a new depth of uselessness in front of a crowd, in a sandpit, while a man twice my size tested blunt objects on my body. I rolled before the second swing crushed my head. Barely. The club slammed down beside my ear. Sand jumped. I stabbed the stone shard into his calf. He roared and kicked me in the chest. My vision flashed white. The crowd laughed harder. I hated them. I hated him. I hated the fact that Torin was trying to crawl toward me because even half-dead he was still more useful than I was. The club came down again. Torin moved. He put one armored forearm between the club and my skull. Bone plating cracked. He grunted and dropped to one knee. Something inside me shrank. I was the reason he was here. I had saved him, then made him save me. Great heroic balance. I gave people problems and called it loyalty. The clubman raised his weapon for both of us. I grabbed a fistful of sand and threw it into his eyes. Then I bit his wounded calf. Yes, bit him. Revenge stories leave that part out because biting a stranger's leg does not look noble. It does work though. He screamed and staggered. I slammed the stone shard into the back of his knee. Torin, with the last of his strength, shouldered him off balance. The man fell face first into the sand. I grabbed his club and hit him until he stopped trying to get up. The bell rang. Victory won, the wall announced. The crowd booed. I spat blood and sand. Sorry, was I supposed to lose prettier? Torin collapsed again. The poison around his wounds had turned black. Between fights they dragged us into a makeshift infirmary that looked less like healing and more like storage for people who had not finished dying. A pit medic glanced at Torin, shrugged, and said, Expensive antidote, not wasted on punishment candidates. I grabbed his collar. He looked at my shaking hand and laughed. Hit me, he said. Then they had another fight. I let go. That hurt worse than the club. Above the infirmary, on a clean balcony that did not belong in that place, Leora Vey watched me. She wore her dark coat, clean gloves, and usual expression of rich irritation. Beside her sat a small glass vial filled with green liquid. That medicine will keep him alive, she said. I stared at the vial. Then give it to him. No. Of course. Why would anyone in this place do something decent without a receipt? She leaned one hand on the railing. Join my team for the next official trial. Follow my strategy. Do not make me regret touching your disaster of a life. In exchange, your large friend gets the antidote. I don't trust nobles. Good. Trust is lazy. Use need instead. Her calm made me want to punch the wall. Torin coughed behind me. Dark blood spotted his lips. Leora looked at him, then at me. Your pride is very dramatic, Kael. Unfortunately, it has poor medical value. I wanted to tell her to choke on the vial. Instead, I said, fine. She smiled slightly. There! That was almost intelligent. Enjoy it. Rare event. She tossed the vial down. I caught it and poured it into Torin's mouth with hands that shook from relief and humiliation. His breathing eased after a minute. Color returned slowly under the poison marks. Leora descended the stairs and stood beside me. Orlan is not punishing you randomly, she said quietly. He is provoking you. Everyone provokes me. It's becoming a local hobby. He wants whatever happened in the first trial to happen again, in front of better observers, so stop reacting like a kicked dog. I looked at her. She left the words sharp. Good. I hated pity more. The second fight came fast, then the third. I survived by cheating, crawling, using the wall, using broken weapons, and once by letting my opponent trip over the body of the previous one. Tactical brilliance. Also luck wearing a dirty coat. By the final fight, my arms trembled every time I lifted them. My opponent was thin, scarred, and smiling too much. He moved like a man who had survived the pit long enough to enjoy hurting people. The bell rang. He did not attack immediately. He circled me. "Kael Varrin," he said. I stiffened. "Popular today," I muttered. He smiled wider. "You came after him, didn't you?" The pit noise faded. I raised the broken club in both hands. "After who?" He leaned close enough for me to smell rot on his breath. Then he whispered, "Little Ashling." The world went red at the edges. My hands tightened around the club. The crowd shouted for blood. For once, I agreed with them. I nearly killed him before I remembered I needed answers. That version makes me sound almost controlled. "Really?" Torrin shouted my name. Leora cursed from the balcony, and 2 pit guards dragged me off the man while I tried to smash his face into the sand. I told myself it was justice. Convenient word. Much cleaner than saying I was scared and wanted someone weaker than me to pay for it. The scarred fighter laughed through broken teeth. "There it is," he rasped. "Same eyes." I lunged again. Torrin caught me from behind, still weak but strong enough to hold my arms. "Kael," he said, "answers first." I shook against him. "He knows. Then let him speak." The pit guards shoved the fighter into a cell after the match was declared a technical victory, which was a very fancy phrase for, "The examiner wants to see what happens next." Leora bribed one guard. Naira, who I had not met yet, stole the other guard's key while standing right beside him. I only noticed because she winked at me. She was small, quick, and grinning like danger was a private joke. Her hair was cut unevenly around her jaw, and she wore travel bands covered in little brass charms. "You're Kael," she said. "Everyone knows my name today. Should I be flattered or worried?" "Both. Mostly worried. You smell like a path that got drunk and fell downstairs." I looked at Leora. "Is she insulting me?" Leora said. Probably accurately, "This is Naira. Guide in training, smuggler when bored, liar when breathing." Naira bowed. "Flattery from a noble. I may faint. Can she help?" I asked. Naira's grin thinned. If the pit rat heard that phrase, someone carried it through the lower railroads. That's guide business. Very illegal guide business. My favorite kind. We entered the cell. The scarred fighter sat against the wall with one eye swollen shut. I crouched in front of him and forced myself to keep both hands on my knees. "Who said little Ashling?" I asked. He spat blood to the side. "Masked ascendant, pale cloak, came through days ago, paid for silence." My stomach tightened. "Before I entered? Before you were dragged in, yes. He said a boy would come. Said the boy would be angry, weak, and easy to point upward." Weak! There it was again! Everyone kept finding the bruise and pressing until I made noise. I said, "Where did he go?" The fighter looked past me toward the door. "Vale Roads. Lower entrance under the old transit shrine." He had a white mark. Saint Mask, cracked eye. Leora went still. Naira stopped smiling. I noticed both reactions because when clever people get quiet, the room usually gets expensive. "What?" I asked. Leora said, "That symbol is old, forbidden old. Use shorter words." Naira said, "People who carry that mark do not visit test floors to make friends." The fighter laughed. "He said the ash child should have died in the village. Said if he climbs, old debts climb with him." I grabbed his shirt before I could stop myself. "What debts? Ask your dead parents." My fist rose. Torrin stepped forward just one step. I lowered it. I hated him for stopping me. I needed him to keep doing it. Disgusting realization. Naira led us out through a service tunnel behind the pit. Myrek came with us, lantern dim and nervous, muttering that unauthorized railroad access was punishable by memory stripping, limb binding, or floor exile. He listed those like he was reading dinner options. "Relax," Naira told him. "We probably won't get caught." Myrek whispered. "Probably? Would you prefer a comforting lie?" "Yes. Fine. We definitely won't get caught." I said, "You are terrible at comfort. And yet, still prettier than the alternative." I did not know what to do with that, so I ignored it with great maturity. The lower railroad entrance sat beneath a broken shrine sealed behind rusted gates. Naira touched 3 stones in the wall, hummed a tune under her breath, and opened a gap where no door had been. Inside, the air tasted old. The passage was narrow and lined with black tiles. Faint light moved under the floor. Every few steps the walls shifted by a finger's width when I looked away. I decided not to mention that. Some problems get worse when named. Naira walked first. Leora followed with one hand near a hidden blade. Torin stayed behind me. Mirek's lantern floated low, recording faint traces in the air. Higher climbers use these? I asked. Naira nodded. Guides, smugglers, examiners who want privacy, ascendants who hate waiting in official lines. So murderers with pale masks. Also them, very rude clientele. At the transit shrine, we found the mark. It was smeared on the wall in old blood, though I did not know whose. A white saint mask cracked through the left eye. Simple lines, clean shape, ugly meaning. My stomach dropped. I had seen that crack before. I had not seen it with my eyes. I felt it in the part of me that remembered the masked man's laugh when he broke my sickle. Mirek's lantern flickered and projected a thin record of footsteps, pale cloak movement, a hand pressing the bloody symbol. The image lasted only a second before static ate it. He was here, Mirek said. I touched the dry blood on the wall. For the first time since entering the tower, my revenge stopped feeling like blind running. There was a trail. Thin, bloody, probably bait. I was still hungry enough to follow it. Behind us, something hit the floor. We turned. The scarred pit fighter stood at the entrance to the shrine, eyes wide, one hand clutching his throat. A black dart stuck under his jaw. He tried to speak. Blood filled his mouth instead. A shadow dropped from the ceiling behind him. The assassin wore gray cloth and a half mask with no mouth. They yanked the dart free and let the fighter fall. I ran forward. The assassin looked directly at me. Their voice was low and flat. The Ash Child should have died in the village. Then they threw a smoke bead at the floor. Naira cursed. The aura pulled me back. Torin swung through the smoke and hit nothing. When it cleared, the assassin was gone. The pit fighter lay dead beside the shrine. I stared at him. Answers kept dying around me, which meant somebody above us was still scared enough to clean up. Good. I wanted them scared. I just wished I was strong enough to deserve it. The next official trial began with a board telling me I was useless in a new font. Roll assignment hall was packed with aspirants, all lined beneath 6 glowing signs: Striker, Defender, Scout, Guide, Binder, Support. Candidates stood tall while the board read them. Some smiled when their roles appeared. Some complained because their assigned role was beneath their family name, which sounded like a nice problem to have. Then my turn came. The board flashed my name. Kael Varrin. Assignment: none. Status: unfit for structured combat. The hall burst out laughing. I stared at the words. That was the tower's polite way of saying I was bad at everything, very refined. If it kicked me downstairs, it would probably apologize for the stairs. A blonde swordswoman near the front looked me over and said, "Why is he still climbing?" I turned toward her. "Spite, mostly. Poor planning, too." A few candidates laughed at that, which annoyed the swordswoman more than my existence. Mirak leaned close. "That's Sen Valet's, minor noble house, excellent sword record. Does everyone here come with a warning label? The dangerous ones do." Sen's eyes went to the broken sickle handle tied at my belt. Dead weight with farm trash. That should not have hurt. It did. Leora arrived like she had been waiting for the insult to ripen. "Sen Valet's, your team failed the preliminary balance check. You need a guide and a defender. I have both." Sen looked at Naira, then Torin, then me. "And why him?" "Because the board hates him," Leora said, "which means Orlan is watching him. I'd rather keep the interesting problem where I can see it." "Comforting," I said. "You are welcome." Sen crossed her arms. "He will slow us down." I opened my mouth. Torin said, "He saved my life." Sen looked at Torin's size, the bone ridges under his skin, the scars on his arms. Her confidence shifted slightly. "That does not make him useful in formation," she said. "No," Torin replied. "It makes him worth carrying until he proves otherwise." I hated how grateful I felt. The trial gates opened before Sen could refuse again. We entered a shifting arena suspended over darkness. Platforms moved in slow circles, bridges folded and unfolded, wind tunnels opened without warning. Far ahead, a gate glowed blue. Above it, a timer counted down. The trial voice said, "Teams must cross all 4 roll fields. Each field requires correct roll response. Team wipeout results in failure." "Simple," Naira said. I looked at the moving bridges and the drop beneath them. "Your definition of simple needs medical attention." The first field was combat. Sen became a different person with her sword drawn. Pale fire ran along the blade. 3 training beasts made of stone and ether leapt from the floor. She cut the first in half before I finished stepping back. Torin caught the second with both arms and drove it into the ground. Leora called angles. Nira found a side path. Mirek's lantern flashed enemy patterns. I swung my broken handle at a beast already missing half its head. I missed. Sen saw. Of course she saw. "Stay behind us," she snapped. I wanted to tell her to shove her sword somewhere noble. Instead, I stayed behind them because my survival instincts had finally started attending meetings. The second field was defense. Ether bolts rained from the ceiling. Torin's bone mantle rose over his shoulders and arms. He shielded us while Leora counted the rhythm and Naira pulled us through safe gaps. I tripped once and nearly took a bolt to the neck. Sen grabbed my collar and yanked me down. "Do you want to die?" she said. "Currently, less than before. Then move like it." The third field was a broken bridge hanging between two platforms. Wind pushed from both sides. Below, shapes moved in the dark. A team ahead of us rushed across. The bridge snapped halfway. 3 candidates fell screaming. The rest clung to chains while hidden things climbed up toward them. Sen looked at Naira. "Path?" Naira frowned. "Bad. The safe route keeps moving." Leora's eyes narrowed as she calculated. "If we wait, we lose the timer. If we rush, we lose bodies." Everyone looked at the bridge. I looked at the hinges. The left hinge was rusted through the lower pin. The right chain carried too much weight. Wind pushed hard every 7th breath. The bridge had not snapped from weight alone. It snapped when the wind hit and the chain twisted. Farm gates break the same way when lazy sons ignore maintenance for 3 months. I may or may not have been that son. I grabbed a broken spear shaft from the last field and ran to the hinge. Sen shouted, "Kael, stop!" I jammed the spear shaft through the lower ring and threw my weight against it. Pain shot through my injured side. "Cross on the third wind!" I shouted. "Not now! Third! The chain will settle!" Leora stared at the hinge, then at the wind channel. "He's right." That was the first time anyone in the tower said those words about me. I considered dying happy, but the bridge was still trying to rip my arms off. Torin crossed first, carrying Mirek. Naira moved after him, light as a thief's promise. Leora followed. Sen hesitated, then ran. The wind hit. The spear shaft cracked. Sen reached the far platform and turned. I was still on the wrong side. Of course I was. The bridge lurched. The shaft split. I jumped as the left side dropped. I did not make the platform. My fingers caught the edge. Very heroic, very painful. My shoulder almost tore loose. Sen grabbed my wrist. For a second, we stared at each other. Her grip tightened. "Dead weight," I said through clenched teeth. She pulled me up hard enough to slam my ribs into the stone. "Useful dead weight," she said. I lay there coughing and almost smiled. The final field was an ether storm corridor. Naira guided us by reading shifts in the air. Leora called timing. Torin carried shields broken from stone beasts. Sen cut through stray bursts when they condensed into blades. I watched the floor. The storm moved in patterns, but the little stones moved first. They trembled a heartbeat before each blast. "Left!" I shouted. Torin shifted. A blast tore through the place he had been standing. After that, nobody told me to shut up. We crossed the final gate with 3 seconds left. The teams behind us stared. Some looked angry, some looked confused. The best ones looked careful. Sen sheathed her sword and said, "You are not strong, I noticed, frequently, but you see things." It landed short of praise, still warm enough to annoy me because I preferred disliking her. Mirek's lantern suddenly flickered. A beam of pale light spilled across the arena wall. At first I thought it was one of his recordings from the trial. Then the image cleared. A woman stood in old climber armor, her hair tied back, one hand resting on a blade I had never seen. My knees went weak. It was my mother. Behind her, on a stone wall, was the cracked white mask symbol. The arena noise faded. Mirek whispered, "I didn't call that up." I turned on him. "Then why the hell does your lantern know my mother?" Mirek swore he had not known. He said it 3 times, hands shaking, lantern dimming above his shoulder like it was embarrassed for both of us. I did not believe him. Suspicion had become easy. Trust was heavy, and I was tired of carrying things that might bite me later. "That recording came from your lantern," I said. Mirek swallowed. "It came through my lantern." "That is different." "Wonderful. A technical betrayal. Much classier." Leora stepped between us before my fists got ambitious. "Arguing here is stupid," she said. "Everyone saw the projection. Orlan will know we saw it." Sen looked at me. "Was that truly your mother?" I wanted to say no. I wanted to laugh and tell her my mother never wore armor, never stood beside forbidden symbols, never hid anything bigger than coins in a flower jar. Instead I said, yes. The next trial bell rang before anyone could ask the questions I was avoiding. The wall behind us opened into a corridor lined with black doors. Orlan's voice came through the stone. "Door of lies. Each candidate will enter alone. The door will show one falsehood you desire, wrapped around one truth you avoid. Speak the truth to exit, refuse, and the door keeps what you offer." Naira made a face. "I hate this one." "Comforting," I said. "You hated the illegal tunnels with a smile. Those only kill your body, this one gets nosy." One by one, doors opened. Mine had no handle. It had my name scratched across it in letters that looked too fresh. I stepped inside. The floor changed under my boots. I was home. My kitchen was whole. Clean floorboards, straight table, morning light through the window. The stove smoked because my mother always fed it too much kindling and then blamed the wood. She stood beside it, alive. My father sat at the table repairing a tool. I stopped breathing. My mother turned and frowned at my muddy boots. Kael Varrin, if you track that filth across my clean floor, I'll make you scrub it with your teeth. I laughed. It broke out of me before I could stop it. Then I cried, which was less impressive. She looked exactly right. The small flaws made it worse. Her sleeves were rolled unevenly. A strand of hair stuck to her cheek. Flour dust marked her wrist. The lie knew details it had no right to know. My father looked up. Mark, it took you long enough. I took one step toward them, then another. I knew it was fake. My mother's body was cold somewhere below. My father's last grip had gone slack around my wrist. The tower was using me. I still reached for her. That was the ugliest part. I had spent every hour screaming for revenge, but when the tower offered me a lie where they were alive, I reached for it like a starving dog. So much for noble grief. My mother's hand touched my cheek. Warm. I almost stayed. Then the stove smoke stopped moving. The window light froze. My father's hammer paused above the tool. The lie cracked. My mother turned away from me and faced my father. Her voice changed. It was still hers, but younger, harder. She said, if they find him, the Hollow Saints will come. My father set down the tool. Then we bury his name deeper. Names do not stay buried forever. They stay buried long enough for him to live. The kitchen walls darkened. Behind them, the cracked white mask symbol spread across the wood like old paint. My mother's face blurred between the woman who raised me and the armored climber from Mirek's lantern. I grabbed her wrist. What name? She looked at me then. For 1 second, I thought the illusions saw me. She said, my poor boy. The words hit harder than any club in the pit. I let go. No, I said. The kitchen shuddered. The door wanted a truth. I had plenty of lies to choose from. My parents were simple farmers. The killer came by chance. I was climbing for justice, not because revenge was easier than mourning. I said the one that tasted worst. I wanted the lie. The kitchen cracked. I wanted it more than revenge for a moment. I wanted to stay here and let the tower eat whatever was left of me. The floor trembled. My mother's face softened. Then she vanished. The door opened behind me. I stepped into the memory corridor with my hands shaking. The others emerged one by one. Leora came out pale, lips pressed tight. She said nothing until Nira asked what she saw. Leora answered, my family inviting me home, then admitting they threw me away because I was inconvenient, not because I failed. Her voice stayed flat. Her hands did not. Sen came out with blood on her palm where her nails had dug in. She said she saw herself killing a surrendered opponent to preserve her house honor. She said it once, hard and clear, then dared anyone to pity her. Torin emerged last before Mirek. His eyes were red, but his voice held. My tribe leaving me outside the gate. I told the door I still hoped they had a reason. Mirek's door took longer. When he came out, he looked sick. I noticed. I should have asked. I did not. Suspicion again. Easy, ugly, cheap. The observer gallery above the corridor was filled with masked officials and silent aspirants. They had watched enough to see me break, not enough to understand why. Orlan stood at the exit. His clean coat looked bright under the corridor lights. Too bright. Clean men always look brighter after you have been crawling, he clapped once. An educational trial, he said. I walked toward him, every muscle tired. Did you enjoy digging through my dead family? He tilted his head. The door reveals what candidates bring with them. Blame your parents for packing poorly. Sen's hand went to her sword. Leora caught her wrist. Orlan smiled at me. So, your parents did manage to bury the name. My throat tightened. What name? He stepped closer. Yours! The corridor went silent. For once, I had no joke ready. That scared me almost as much as the answer. Orlan did not give me the name. Of course he did not. Men like him do not hand you knives. They show you the handle, then wait for you to cut yourself reaching. I spent the next night awake, staring at the dorm ceiling while everyone else pretended to sleep. My mother in armor, the cracked mask, Hollow Saints, my buried name. Every thought led back to the same kitchen floor, and every path ended with the pale mask laughing over my father's body. By morning, I was tired enough to make bad decisions efficiently. Orlan announced the bonus trial in the central arena. Hundreds of aspirants gathered around a circular platform suspended above a pit of moving stone. In the center sat a black crown on a white pedestal. It looked simple, dark metal shaped like thorns, no jewels or gold. Orlan's voice carried over the crowd. Crown of Ash. The winning team may skip 2 minor trials and advance directly to final examination eligibility. 1 member must wear the crown. The team must hold it through 3 assault rounds. Loss of crown, team surrender, or total incapacitation results in failure. Leora looked at the crown like it owed her money. We take it, she said. Sen folded her arms. Your team cannot hold center. Our team won the role trial. Your team survived the role trial. There is a difference. Then join us and improve the statistics. Sen's jaw tightened. Her own team stood across the arena, avoiding her eyes. One of them had apparently sold their slot to a richer candidate overnight. Tower loyalty. Very moving. Brought a tear to no one's eye. Sen looked at me. If I join, he stays behind the line. I raised a hand. He is standing right here and fully aware he is terrible. Good, Sen said. Self-awareness is safer than pride. I have both. They take turns ruining me. Torin gave a low grunt that might have been amusement. When the bell rang, the arena shifted. Platforms rose around the crown. Other teams rushed from 5 gates at once. Some came with shields, some with chain weapons. One noble team arrived under a glowing banner shaped like a hawk, because apparently even murder games need branding. Leora pointed. Torin, center. Sen, left intercept. Nira, root cuts. Mirek, record patterns. Kael, I waited. Watch. That insulted me. It also made sense, which was worse. Torin took the crown and set it on his head. The black metal shrank slightly to fit him, then sank into a ring of dark light above his brow. His bone mantle rose. Sen stepped left, silver flame licking along her blade. Nira vanished into the moving platforms. Mirek's lantern spun overhead, catching lines of attack. I crouched near the pedestal with a short knife Leora had given me. A boy from the Hawk Banner team pointed at me and laughed. They brought the ash rank as decoration, his teammate said. Careful, he might bleed on your boots. The crowd laughed. I smiled at the floor. It was either that or run at him and die like an idiot. I was trying personal growth, horrible activity, very uncomfortable. The first assault round hit hard. Sen cut through 2 attackers before they reached the center. Torin took a hammer blow to the chest and barely moved. Leora called corrections from the rear, her eyes flicking over every motion like she was reading a page nobody else could see. Nira appeared behind an enemy binder and kicked him off a platform. Mirek shouted warnings as his lantern flashed red. I watched. It hurt to be useful by doing nothing. Then I saw the first gap. The Hawk Banner team was not aiming for Torin. They were forcing Sen left, making her cut wider each time. Their binder waited for her third swing. When her blade crossed too far, he would lock her wrist and the spear carrier would take the crown from behind. Sen! Low feint, I shouted. She did not ask why. Bless her practical, insulting soul, she dropped her next swing halfway. The binder lunged too early. His seal missed her wrist. Sen stepped inside and smashed her pommel into his jaw. Nira tripped the spear carrier from behind. The crowd noise changed. Confusion first. Cheers would have been too generous. People hate when their jokes survive. Second round brought beasts made of black stone released from side gates. One slammed into Torin hard enough to push him back 3 steps. Another leapt toward Mirek. I moved without thinking and stabbed it under the jaw with my cheap knife. The knife snapped. The beast did not. It turned toward me. Of course, I said. It hit me in the chest and knocked me across the platform. I landed near the edge. My back screamed. The crowd roared. The beast leapt. A silver arc cut through its neck before it landed. Sen stood over me. Behind the line, trying. The line moved. Very rude. She hauled me up and shoved me toward Torin. The third round was human again. The Hawk Banner captain, a tall noble with gold rings on every finger, walked forward instead of rushing. Kael Varrin, he called. I heard your parents died on a kitchen floor. For this? The arena went sharp and quiet. He smiled. Imagine raising a son so useless that the tower needs a whole team to drag him upward. Something gray stirred under my skin. The dead whispers rose from under the platform. Take what was broken. Take. My hand shook. The noble saw it and smiled wider. He wanted me to lose control. Orlan probably wanted it too from wherever he watched. Put pressure on the ash rank, poke the wound, see what crawls out. I looked at Torin. His arms were shaking under the crown's weight. I looked at Mirek, pale and terrified. Leora's eyes were locked on me, warning clear. Sen's sword was raised, but she could not reach me in time. If I let the gray thing out, it might hit them too. I hated that. I hated needing to care. I hated that caring made me hesitate. Then I noticed the platform under the noble captain. His team had forced us back toward the center, but he had stepped onto a rotating stone with a cracked edge. Each time the arena shifted, that stone dipped half an inch before rising. I swallowed the ash in my throat and raised one bloody hand. Sen, I said. Third shift, cut the right chain. The noble laughed. Giving orders now? No, I said. Begging competent people to fix my problems. It's a theme. The third shift came. Sen cut. The right chain snapped. The cracked platform dipped hard. The noble captain stumbled. Naira kicked his knee from behind. Torin stepped forward and headbutted him so hard one gold ring flew off his finger. The crowd roared. Myrek's lantern flashed as the timer hit 0. The crown stayed above Torin's brow. The board announced, "Crown of Ash complete. Winning team confirmed." For a moment, people cheered. Then Orlan's voice cut through the arena. "Congratulations," he said. "Before your final examination eligibility is confirmed, one matter must be addressed." The cheering died. Orlan stepped onto the examiner balcony. His eyes found our team. One member of the winning team is an informant. Myrek's lantern dropped from the air and hit the platform with a hard glass sound. Everyone turned toward everyone. And just like that, victory started bleeding. We locked ourselves in the dorm because nobody trusted anyone enough to walk in public. That was almost funny. A few days earlier, I had no team. Now I had one, and we were celebrating by preparing to accuse each other of betrayal. Progress has many shapes. Some of them are stupid. Torin stood by the door, arms crossed, making the wood look nervous. Sen stayed near the window with one hand on her sword. Naira sat on the sill, pretending she was relaxed, while her eyes checked every shadow. Leora leaned against the wall with her usual clean glove expression. Myrek held his lantern in both hands. It was dim. I looked at Leora first. She noticed. Of course, start with the noble, very original. You collect secrets like other people collect spoons. If I betrayed you, Kael, you would not be alive to complain about it. I paused. Fair point. Terrible personality, but fair point. Sen's voice cut across the room. Naira has illegal railroad access. Naira lifted a finger. Many charming people have illegal access to many things. That is not evidence. Torin looked at Myrek. Myrek flinched before anyone spoke. That was enough. The room went quiet. I stepped toward him. Myrek, I said. He shook his head. Kael, I can explain. Those 4 words have never improved a betrayal. Leora's eyes narrowed. Lantern, open archive, full access. Myrek clutched it tighter. I can't. Sen drew 1 inch of steel. You will. No, Myrek said, and his voice cracked. I mean I can't. It is sealed. Naira slid off the sill and moved behind him. By who? Myrek looked at me. I hated the answer before he gave it. Orlan, he whispered. Something hot and stupid moved through me. I crossed the room and grabbed him by the collar. His lantern swung, spilling pale light over the floor. You reported on us? Myrek's eyes filled with tears. He has my sister. I slammed him into the wall. Torin said my name. I did not stop. You watched me, I said. You watched me bleed, crawl, sleep, break, and you carried it all back to him? Ari is 12, Myrek said. He took her before the first trial. He said if I helped him identify anomalies, he would let her climb out. If I refused, he would send her to disposal. So you sold us? Yes, he said. The honesty made me angrier. I punched him. His head snapped to the side. The lantern flashed. Recorded voices spilled across the dorm floor like broken glass. Orlan's voice said, Observe Varrin during stress. Record any gray discharge. Do not interfere unless death is imminent. Myrek's voice shaking said, You promised Ari would be safe. Orlan said, I promised she would remain useful. Choose your words more carefully. Another recording showed a small girl behind bars, thin arms wrapped around her knees. Ari, she had Myrek's eyes. I saw her and still wanted to hit him again. I am least proud of what came next. I wanted him to hurt because I hurt. That was the shape of me then. A small, pathetic thing pretending to be justice. I drew back my fist. Torin caught my wrist. His grip did not crush, it only held. Enough, he said. I turned on him. He betrayed us. Yes. He stabbed us in the back. Yes. Then let me become Orlan. That stopped me. The room stayed silent. Myrek slid down the wall, blood on his mouth, sobbing quietly. I let Torin lower my arm. I hated him for being right. I hated Myrek for giving him a reason to be right. I hated myself most because part of me still wanted to finish it. Leora crouched by the lantern and touched a symbol on its rim. There are more messages. Orlan is moving Ari tonight. Lower laboratory, containment wing. Naira said. That is under the examiner level. Bad locks. Worse guards. Probably experimental creatures. Probably? Myrek whispered. Naira gave him a flat look. You have lost the right to demand comfort. Sen sheathed her sword. We retrieve the girl, then we decide what to do with him. I looked at Myrek. He would not meet my eyes. I said, if this is another trap, I will hate myself later. But I will hate you immediately. It is a trap, Leora said. I stared at her. She shrugged. Obviously. But Orlan expects us either to fracture or rush blindly. We can at least choose the shape of our stupidity. That was the closest thing to optimism she had ever offered. We went anyway. Naira guided us through a maintenance passage beneath the dorm halls. Mirak came because he knew Ari's holding mark. Sen watched him the whole time. Torin walked close enough to stop me if I lost control again. I pretended not to notice. Badly. The lower laboratory was hidden behind a sealed archive door. Leora broke the outer lock with a thin silver pin. Naira listened to the wall, then opened a side path through a storage shaft. Inside, the air was cold and clean. That bothered me. Cruel places should stink. This one smelled like polished stone and medicine. Orlan's kind of cruelty did not spill unless he wanted it to. Rows of glass cells lined the chamber. Some held empty shackles, some held marks burned into the floor. One held a small girl curled under a gray blanket. Mirek ran to the glass. Ari! The girl lifted her head. Her face changed when she saw him. Hope first, then fear when she saw the rest of us. Mirek? She said. His hands shook against the glass. I'm here. I'm getting you out. A mark on the floor beneath him lit red. Leora shouted, Move! Too late. Black lines crawled up Mirek's arms. He screamed and doubled over. The lantern flared above him, spinning too fast. Orlan's voice filled the lab from hidden speakers. Emotional rescue attempts are beautifully predictable. Sen drew her sword. Torin moved in front of Ari's cell. Nira cursed and checked the exits. Mirek turned toward me. His eyes were terrified. Kael, he said, run! His body moved without him. A thin blade slid from the lantern frame into his hand. He drove it into my side. Pain punched the air out of me. Mirek sobbed. I'm sorry! I'm sorry! I'm sorry! Behind him, a containment gate opened. Something crawled out. It was long, pale, and wrong around the joints. Its head was covered in closed eyes. Its mouth opened where its throat should have been, and the air filled with the sound of people whispering regrets. Orlan said, Let us see what the Ash Child does when forgiveness becomes inconvenient. I fell to one knee, blood running warm down my shirt. Forgiveness was nowhere near the top of my list. The Grief Eater came out smiling with a mouth that did not need. Of course, the tower had a monster that ate regret. Why would it not? This place never wasted suffering. It recycled it, polished it, then called it a trial. The laboratory lights flickered as the creature unfolded from the containment gate. Its pale limbs scraped the floor. The closed eyes on its head twitched under thin skin. Every whisper in the room bent toward it. My side burned where Mirek had stabbed me. Mirek was on his knees, fighting his own arms as black seal lines wrapped his wrists and throat. Ari screamed from behind the glass. Torin slammed both fists into the cell door. Sen cut at the red floor mark. Leora searched the walls for the control array. Naira threw knives at every shadow that looked like a hidden speaker. The Grief Eater turned toward me. A voice came from its throat. My father's voice. Don't climb. My body locked. The lab disappeared. I was back in the kitchen, on the floor, my father's hand around my wrist. His blood was warm. His eyes were afraid. Then the vision changed. My mother stood behind him, alive but wounded, holding a door shut with both hands. She looked at me and said, Run, Kael. If you climb, they will know what you are. I tried to speak. No sound came out. The Grief Eater pushed closer. The vision pressed against my eyes. It did not show what happened. It showed what I feared happened. My parents dying because of me. My father warning me because he knew I would ruin everything. My mother hiding a name because the name was mine. A very neat package of misery. The tower had customer service after all. Sen's shout cut through it. Kael, move! I hit the floor as the creature's limb sliced over my head. Sen's silver flame cut across its side. The wound opened, then closed around a puff of gray smoke. It is feeding! Leora shouted. The more regret it pulls, the faster it heals. Then stop regretting things, I snapped, scrambling backward. Naira ducked under a limb. Brilliant plan. Shall I also stop having bones? The creature turned toward Torin. He saw something I could not. His face changed. He whispered. I waited. His bone mantle cracked. The Grief Eater slammed him through a table. Mirek screamed Ari's name and tried to crawl toward the glass. The seal dragged him back like invisible hooks. Ari pounded the cell wall. Brother! The Grief Eater's throat mouth opened wider. It spoke in Mirek's voice now. I promised, I promised, I promised. Mirek looked at me through tears. Leave me. Save Ari, please. I deserve whatever happens. I wanted to agree. There. That is the truth. I wanted to say yes, you deserve it. You watched me for Orlan. You lied. You stabbed me. Your reasons were sad, but sad reasons still bleed. I wanted to step over him and rescue the girl because she was innocent and he was convenient to hate. Torin pushed himself up from broken glass. He did not lecture me, he only said, a line. I knew what he meant. Revenge needed a line. Without one, it was just murder with better excuses. I hated that lesson. It sounded like something a healthy person would learn calmly from a mentor on a hill. I learned it bleeding in a secret lab while a regret monster wore my father's voice. Very educational. I crawled toward Mirek. The black seal on his arms pulsed every time he tried to resist. The lines ran from his wrists into the lantern, then from the lantern into the floor mark. A promise chain. Orlan had made him swear to obey in exchange for Ari's safety, then twisted the wording until the promise became a leash. Ash stirred under my skin. I looked at Mirek. Did you promise to protect her? He nodded, sobbing. Yes. Say it. I promised to protect Ari. The Grief Eater lunged. Sen intercepted and was thrown back. Naira dragged her out of the way. Torin put himself between the creature and me, bone plates splintering under each hit. I grabbed Mirek's wrist. The seal burned my palm. The dead whispers rose, but this time I did not let them drag me everywhere. I held one sound, one promise, one broken line. Mirek's voice said, I promised to protect Ari. I pushed the ash into the seal. Pain shot through my head. A memory tore loose. My mother singing while washing clothes. Not the whole memory, just the melody. I felt it slip away. I reached for it and found nothing but the knowledge that something had been there. The cost hit me harder than the stab wound. The tower had finally given me power. Generous bastard that it was, it charged in memories. The seal cracked. Mirek screamed. The Grief Eater screamed with him. Black ash burned around my hand, crawling over the red lines, eating through the contract mark. The lantern spun so fast, the glass chipped. Orlan's voice snapped through the speakers. Stop him! That was the first time I heard panic in Orlan's voice. Small thing. Delicious thing. Leora found the control array and slammed her dagger into it. Ari's cell flickered. Naira threw a knife into the upper hinge. Sen, blood running down her temple, cut the weakened lock. Torin ripped the door open with both hands. Ari crawled out and ran to Mirek. The moment she touched him, the promise chain shattered. Mirek collapsed into her arms. The Grief Eater recoiled, all the closed eyes on its head snapping open at once. Inside each eye, I saw a different dead face. My mother was not there. Thank every cruel god for small favors. Torin charged it from one side, Sen cut from the other. Naira drove 2 blades into the floor mark. Leora shouted, timing. I pressed my ash-burned hand against the creature's throat mouth and focused on the broken seal still smoking in my palm. Eat this, I said. Not my best line. I was bleeding and missing a song. Standards were low. Ash surged. The Grief Eater folded inward, screaming with too many voices, then collapsed into gray dust across the laboratory floor. Silence followed. Ari cried into Mirek's shoulder. Mirek held her like she was the only thing keeping him alive. Sen leaned on her sword. Naira sat hard on the floor and laughed once, shaky and annoyed. Torin put one hand on my back before I fell. I looked at him. I forgot something. His expression changed. What? I swallowed. A song. My mother's, I think. I know there was one. I don't know how it went. Nobody spoke. That was mercy. Then slow clapping came from the upper walkway. Orlan stepped into view. Behind him stood 3 masked observers, their recording crystals glowing. His coat was still clean, but his face had lost some of its polite softness. Remarkable, he said. Sen raised her blade. You used a hostage and a sealed candidate to release a containment beast. That violates examination law. Orlan looked at her like she had recited table manners during a house fire. Law is interpretation, he said. Survival is result. Leora lifted Mirek's cracked lantern. It still glowed, recording. Orlan's eyes moved to it. There. Another small panic. Then he looked at me. Your parents were skilled, he said. They hid the shape well. They buried the name under mud, labor, and a false life. I forced myself upright. What name? Orlan's smile returned, thinner now. Ashen Vow, he said. Child of the 13th vow. The name struck the room like a bell. I shook my head. That is not my name. No, Orlan said. It is the name your parents died hiding. Then the final exam bell rang. Because apparently the tower believed emotional devastation should be scheduled back to back. The final examination began before my blood dried. That should have surprised me. It did not. By then, I understood the Vowspire had the compassion of a boot and the timing of a debt collector. Orlan's name still rang in my head. Ashen Vow. I hated it. It sounded old, expensive, dangerous, nothing like me. Kael Varrin was mud, onions, bad boots, and a mother who threatened dental punishment for dirty floors. Ashen Vow sounded like someone who had ruined a country before breakfast. My parents were dead. My name was apparently fake. My revenge was built on half a story. Excellent. All I needed now was someone to tell me I had been raised by goats and the day would be complete. The final exam gate opened under the laboratory and swallowed us into water. Cold hit first, then pressure. Then panic, because breathing underwater is usually considered advanced dying. A shell of air formed around my mouth and nose at the last second. I choked, cursed, and grabbed the nearest stone rail. We stood on a staircase inside a vertical sea. The drowned stair rose above us in a spiral, vanishing into blue-black water. Strange lights moved beyond the steps. Some were fish. Some were bigger. Some had too many legs to be fish, and I decided not to improve my education. The trial voice said, "Final examination. Reach the upper gate. Rival teams and native threats remain active. External interference forbidden." Leora looked up the stair. "We move as one. Tor in front, Sen left, Nira root, Mirak records, Kael stays center." I opened my mouth. She pointed one gloved finger at me. "If you argue, I will push you into the sea and call it strategy. That would be murder, efficient murder." Sen said, "She is right, you are unstable." "I enjoy how everyone says that like I missed the announcement." Torin put a heavy hand on my shoulder. "Let us carry you until the moment comes." There it was, the thing I hated most, help. Every part of me wanted to step forward, bleed heroically, prove I was not dead weight, and probably die in a way that made everyone sigh. The old Kael would have done it. The old Kael had charged a masked monster with a sickle, and learned nothing except how floorboards tasted. I looked at Eri clinging to Mirek's side near the rear. I looked at Torin's cracked bone plates, Sen's bloodied face, Leora's shaking fingers hidden inside clean gloves, Nira's smile gone sharp and tired. They had bled for my climb. Dying alone to protect my pride would have been the most selfish thing I had done yet, and I had an impressive list. I nodded. "Fine," I said. "I will stay center, try not to enjoy being correct." Leora said, "Too late! We climbed!" The first rival team attacked from a side stair, moving fast through the water like they had trained for it. Sen met them with silver fire. Underwater, her flame burned pale and thin, cutting arcs through bubbles and blood. Torin blocked a hooked spear with his forearm and smashed the attacker into the rail. Nira found a narrow sidestep hidden behind swaying chains and pulled us around a collapsing section. I watched, not useless watching. At least, that was what I told myself while my hands shook. The stair had rules in its bones. Every 9th step dragged downward, every 3rd current pulled left. The ether beasts did not attack the strongest person. They struck whoever crossed a pressure line first. "Wait," I said when Torin moved toward a wide landing. He stopped. A flat creature with a mouth full of hooked teeth burst from the stone where his foot would have landed. Sen cut it in half. Torin glanced back at me. I shrugged. Farm pond had eels, ugly little bastards. Bigger pond, bigger bastard. We kept climbing. Mirek's lantern recorded everything. Orlan's voice from the lab, the control seal, the grief eater release, our final exam steps. His hand trembled every time it passed me. I had not forgiven him, but I kept him out of the sea. Growth, apparently, has low standards. Halfway up, the water darkened. The stair groaned. Pressure slammed down on us. Torin fell to one knee. Sen's sword dipped. Nira grabbed a chain before the current tore her sideways. Mirek shielded Ari with his body. Leora gasped and pressed one hand to the step. I knew that pressure. The room with Orlan. The chair. The air turning heavy. Law of weight. External interference forbidden, my ass. Orlan appeared above us on a suspended platform, one hand raised, coat rippling in the water like a white flag with delusions. Candidate instability threatens examination integrity, he announced. His voice echoed through the stair. Rival teams stopped climbing to stare. Observer crystals lit in the walls. The warden's symbol glowed faintly above the upper gate. Leora laughed through clenched teeth. He is declaring interference while interfering. Bold, stupid, but bold. Orlan's hand tightened. The pressure doubled. My knees hit the step. Pain screamed through my side. The name Ashen Vow burned in my skull. Ash crawled along my fingers. Charge him, some part of me said. Break him. Kill him. Very tempting. Very dramatic. Very likely to get everyone crushed while I made an angry face. I looked at Orlan's hand. Then past it, to the faint contract chain running from his wrist into the warden's symbol above the gate. He was leaning on permission, not raw strength. Floor authority. Warden contract. A rule with a man hiding behind it. Rules could crack. I knew that now. I forced myself to wait. Sen was pinned, but still had her sword angled upward. Torin was shielding Mirek and Ari under his body. Nira had one hand free near a guide chain. Leora's eyes found mine. She understood before I spoke. 3 seconds? She asked. I nodded. Maybe is disgusting, she said. It's my specialty. I pressed my ash-burned palm to the stair. The dead whispers rose from the drowned stare. Failed candidates, broken vows, drowned promises. I did not take all of it. I would have lost too much. Instead, I searched for one thing. Orlan's contract. His promise to uphold the examination. His violation. There. A clean thread wrapped in a dirty lie. I pushed Ashen Vow into it. The memory cost came sharp. My father's laugh. I felt it slip. I knew he had laughed. I knew I had loved it. The sound itself vanished. For a second, grief almost broke my focus. Then I thought of Orlan's clean hands, the hostage, the sealed knife, the monster. The way he said my buried name like he owned it. I burned the contract. Orlan's eyes widened. The pressure vanished. 3 seconds. Leora moved first. She slammed the hidden needle into the stair mechanism and opened the final route. Nira snapped the guide chain and swung across the broken current. Torin rose with a roar and shielded Mirek and Ari from a lunging beast. Sen launched from his shoulder, silver flame flaring around her blade. She reached Orlan's platform and cut across his arm. Blood spread through the water. Orlan screamed. The scream was smaller than he deserved. I appreciated it anyway. Mirek's lantern flashed bright, recording Orlan's raised hand, the contract chain, Sen's strike, the Warden symbol reacting. The 3 seconds ended. But Orlan's control did not return cleanly. The Warden symbol above the gate turned red. A voice deeper than the trial system filled the drowned stare. Examiner interference confirmed. Contract breach recorded. Candidate team may proceed. Examiner authority suspended pending judgment. The rival teams stared. The observers stared. Orlan clutched his bleeding arm and looked, for the first time, like a man standing without his wall of rules. He looked smaller. I enjoyed that more than I should have. We climbed the last steps together. Torin half carried me despite my complaints. Sen guarded the rear. Naira led through the final current. Leora kept one hand on the root seal. Mirek carried Ari and the lantern, both shaking. The upper gate opened onto a white platform under a round, staring light. The Warden judgment platform. We collapsed onto dry stone. Air hit my lungs, real air. I lay there coughing and laughing because survival had become funny in a sick way. The ranking board formed above us. First it showed our team names as advanced. Torin Blackjaw, Leora Vey, Sen Valaise, Naira of the Veilroads, Mirek Sol, Kael Varrin. Then my name flickered. Kael Varrin, status, advanced, true name, partially recovered, threat classification, Ash, tight crown seed. The platform went silent. The same candidates who had laughed at Ash rank now stared like the joke had grown teeth. Strong was the wrong word. I felt soaked, stabbed, exhausted, and robbed of my father's laugh. But I was standing because my team had held the pieces of me together long enough for me to do one useful thing. Maybe needing them did not make me worthless. Maybe dying alone to prove I was strong would have been the real weakness. Disgusting lesson. Probably healthy. I hated it. A small object appeared in my hand. My advancement token. It should have shown the next floor route. Instead, the metal turned gray and cracked down the center. A woman's voice came from it, soft with static. My mother's voice. Kael, if you are seeing this, then we failed. Do not trust the Hollow Saints. Do not trust the man in the pale mask. And above all, do not let them return your name to you. The token flashed. For one heartbeat, I saw a cracked mirror image inside the metal. A pale mask, a white saint symbol split through one eye. Then I heard the same soft laugh from my kitchen. The next floor gate opened in front of us. I closed my fist around the broken token until its edge cut my palm. I had climbed the first stair. I had found a warning instead of the killer. Somehow, that felt worse.